What's up, guys? Today we're going to be doing a revisit of the classic Galaxy S10, one of my favorite old flagships to revisit. So we're going to be looking at this for 2025. Now, of course, you can get much better, newer phones for, pretty cheap. I cover a lot of old flagships, but this is a phone that I always love to revisit because it's just a very well-made device. A lot of people consider the S10 series to be one of Samsung's best series, the last complete series of Samsung flagships with the headphone jack, and you also have SD card support. And then after that, they slowly start to take the features away. And yeah, so that's one thing that a lot of people like about this phone. It is picking this phone up, it's a very light phone because the battery is kind of small in here. It's a 3400 milliamp hour battery. Like the newer Galaxies kind of have like a 4000 milliamp hour battery. That's the first thing I noticed. Super light, very thin phone. And also hardware, I think, still has stood up. Mine doesn't have too many scratches, not too beat up. And also this phone, I really like the color choice on here as well. This blue, and then when it hits the light, it gives this kind of like a almost purple-ish or effect to it. It's really nice looking. It's a fingerprint magnet for sure. And yeah, IP68 dust and water resistant. Just a very nice piece of hardware, very well designed here. And it's the same thing for the front of the phone here. You got that Bixby button on the left side as well. And overall, the phone, especially from the front, still looks really good for a 2019 phone. Interesting thing about the Galaxy S10 is actually the display. The reason why the S10's display is so interesting is that it's actually a higher resolution than an S24. This has a 1440p display, 550 for the PPI. It is HDR10 plus. And something like an S24 is actually a 1080p panel. So I always thought that was interesting. It looks a lot sharper when you're looking at full 2K content. And it's a very cool thing. Samsung, of course, downgraded it for, maybe battery life reasons or something like that. But yeah, overall, I do really love this display. It does have like those classic kind of Samsung colors, which you don't really get on the newer Samsung panels anymore. Now, those panels are probably a little bit more color accurate, but I do really like that, old look of the Samsung panels because everything just pops. Is really vibrant when it comes to the display here. I would say the only thing that's kind of aged with the panel here is, there's no 120 hertz of course, and then also it does get kind of dim when you're in direct sunlight. It's not the brightest, but besides that, it still looks pretty good. It's a curved panel, which a lot of people, don't like. I do think the curved screen it looks premium to me. But punch hole over here, you could do a lot of people when this came out were putting wallpapers up here. But yeah, so overall, I really like the S10's display still. I think it still looks really good. What's also really nice about the S10 is that it's still very much capable of playing games. Now, of course, some games newer phones can play better, like Genshin and stuff like that, but pretty much the games I play, Call of Duty, you can still play at good settings. PUBG, you can see, can still play at HDR 60, and then also like GTA and stuff like that. There's no game that I play that I can't really run on the S10, which is pretty impressive. Because this Snapdragon 855 does not heat up like some newer phones. I don't get like the phone just getting randomly warm for no reason. But yeah, so I really like the gaming experience on here, and the performance is pretty stable. This phone got its last majorous update with Android 12. It launched with Android 9, and yeah, it's been pretty smooth just doing pretty much anything on this phone here. So Snapdragon 855, again, micro SD card support. The base model is 128 gigs and 6 gigs of RAM, and I think this one might be the 8 gigabyte RAM model. I don't remember, but yeah, the performance on here is very, very solid, guys. What's interesting about the S10's pictures is that it can still pump out a pretty good shot, but yeah, you'll definitely notice that it's an older flagship when you put it in kind of low light scenarios. Now, not all the low light scenarios are bad. Some low light shots I got a pretty decent shot, but you'll kind of notice it with a selfie being kind of soft, the skin tones being off. Sometimes the color is a bit off, but it just depends. The camera is kind of like, it's kind of inconsistent sometimes, but overall the shots, like I said, you can get a decent shot with this phone. For sure. Now, this phone has a 12 megapixel standard and a 12 megapixel telephoto. You have 2 times optical zoom, and it can go up to 10 times. And then you also have a 16 megapixel ultra wide. It can still shoot in 4K 60, and you have a 10 megapixel selfie that shoots in 4K 60. Like I said, you could definitely tell it's an older flagship, but in like very good lighting, you could still, pretty much get a decent shot out of this phone. And I thought the video wasn't that bad at all either. So it pretty much falls in that same category. You take light away from it and kind of, will look a little soft. But yeah, overall, not too bad for a 2019 phone. Let's check out these speakers, max volume. The speakers actually aren't bad. They do not have as much bass as something like the newer Galaxies, like an S24, but they are actually pretty loud. The top speaker is actually giving out a really good amount of sound there. You also do have your fingerprint scanner on here, which works perfectly fine. So it's your ultrasonic one, still really fast. And I guess we can talk about battery life here. This phone, not really impressive battery life. What's funny about the just the base model Galaxy phones, none of them really had like crazy good battery life until the S23, which I do have a video coming up, a day in the life with that phone. But you don't really see that big jump in battery life. Battery life is just kind of okay. Even if I put a new battery in this phone, it would just still be probably like 4 hours, 30 minutes, 5 hours screen on time. But it's a smaller battery, 3400 milliamps. You do have your wired charging on here, which is 15 watts. That's the first thing I noticed is plugging this up. Kind of, 15 watts is kind of slow in 2025 for sure. And then you also have your wireless and reverse wireless charging, which is nice. So yeah, so I really like the S10. I think the display is probably the thing that stood out the most with this phone. Beautiful panel here. The Snapdragon 855 is still really fast, so the phone can pretty much still do anything. And yeah, it's just unfortunate that it's not getting any more updates or anything like that. But be sure to let me know, did you guys ever own an S10? What do you guys think about it? Do you still have one? Are you planning to upgrade to something else? Be sure to let me know, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.